I grew up in a performing arts school. So just to give you background, in first grade, I thought like Why Do Fools Fall in Love by Frankie Lyman was a new song. You know, 1976, kids are singing like I Wish and Isn't She Lovely by Stevie Wonder. And I'm like, why do the first sing? So, and they're like, what song is that? And, you know, like, I thought it was a new song. You know, that's what my parents always played in the house. You know, they played all types of music. My father looked at Saturday Night Fever as the end of music. And he made a conscious decision to stop buying records in 1977. You know, and that affected me because this is a man that had 5,000 records. And pretty much records were, I mean, that's how I survived in my house. Sitting in my father's den, going through each record cover, looking at the record covers, looking at the logos, looking at how it sounded on 45. When they weren't looking, playing it backwards, see what that sounded like. You know, I really studied records, from the fonts to the artwork and to all those things. And for him to say, music's dead, I'm just not buying records anymore. And he really stopped buying records. Like, that affected me. Once he told me of a cycle, and he just demonstrated with jazz, then I sort of put two and two together once I became 15, 16 and figured, okay, well, hip-hop is a culture that, you know, had its own lingo, just like jazz, had its own dress, just like jazz, has its own business. Okay, this is the period in which it's a little primitive, and this is the period that it's getting more sophisticated. So I'm not surprised at all. And just like jazz, I mean, I fully expect hip-hop to become your parents' music, you know. And when it becomes your parents' music, you go looking for that next subculture or genre. Music industry alone is very disposable, but hip-hop culture is really disposable. Like, your first and your second album, that's your career highlight. Your third album, you might get lucky. In terms of groups, when you talk about, you know, when did they have their creative peak, or when did they jump the shark or whatever, most people say by the fourth or fifth album, and then they're never heard of again. They're just disposable, absolutely disposable. Street credibility and respect are factors that are very important in hip-hop culture. You know, you got to walk the walk, talk the talk, and actually look the role of your audience. No one really perfected that formula of keeping their street credibility and still selling millions of units until Dr. Dre's The Chronic came along. And that was the first album that really, really demonstrated that, okay, I don't have to, you know, sell to kids in Montana. They're actually interested in what I'm doing. And I can make 4 million units. And then that's when, I mean, that's like the equivalent of Eve biting the apple. You know, like, you bite and then your eyes are opened up and you realize that you're naked. You know, that's all the naivete and all the innocence and everything that hip-hop was before then. Just self-discovery and the puberty period, that was all over. Like, hip-hop became an adult that year. We signed to Geffen Records in December of 1993. And the reason why we were signed to that label was because 3 of the top earners for that particular label during that time period, Nirvana, Guns N' Roses, and Aerosmith, had made the label so much money that they actually thought of the idea of starting an urban department. They told me that, look, rock is our thing, but we want a hand in the urban department. So we don't know what we're quite doing, but we're going to take care of you. That was the trade-off. Basically, we might drop the ball on this record. We might drop the ball on the next record. But we believe in developing you. And when they spoke in terms of, oh, your 5th and 6th album, your 7th album. You know, those things you just don't think about. We stole our own budget money so that we could buy a loft in London, England, and ran away from home. And the label had no... Actually, they didn't even care to ask where we were until 5 months later. 5 months later, they're like, wait, what happened to the Roots? Where are the Roots? And, you know, our A&R is like covering, like, she knows where we are, but they're... don't they have a record to turn in? Yeah, they're... hang on, I'll be right back. You know, calling us, you got to come home. The label's looking for you. So once we came back to the States and they heard that, you know, we had been in Europe and touring constantly. I mean, it's the equivalent of a person going to the gym and working out, and all of a sudden they're not fat and flabby no more. They're really fit. So once we made our debut in the American public eye, you know, all of a sudden we were a monster to be reckoned with. You know, we had 200 shows under our belt, so we knew things about communication with the audience and mic control and dynamics and a light show. And I mean, we just looked more confident than the average debut group in hip hop and in black music in general. You know, have to be a sex symbol. You have to take off. You know, some people might admire this particular R&B singer because, you know, he just looks sexy. Doesn't even have anything to do with, you know, their talent. Oh, the D'Angelo show. I took the year 2000 off to drum for him. And in the beginning, like, we thought that was going to be like one of the most exhilarating nights of our, like, the tours of our lives. You know, we had like 14, you have a situation in which you have 14 band members, all of whom from different walks of life. I mean, Roy Hargrove is your horn guy. Pino Palladino is your bass player. These are like very well-respected musicians in their own right and in their own world. And we're all coming together. That was the hardest first 2 weeks ever. I mean, all of the sexism and all of the unjust treatment that women have ever gotten in the history of man and women, like, they got their revenge during that tour. Because it became a challenge on how could we keep them from chanting, take it off, take it off, take it off, take it off. I mean, there was like a 3-hour show we prepared. The take it off chants would start at 23 minutes. And I'll say, like, D'Angelo probably held his guns probably after an hour, so he just did what they said just to shut them up, you know. And it wasn't even about the musicianship. I think if anything, the music industry has taught you that, well, it's taught me two things. Prepare for the worst. And it's also taught me to prepare for the worst. If you look at any genre of music that has been invented in the United States, I mean, you'll see a pattern. There's a sort of an underground culture that gets developed. Usually there's a taboo element that sort of follows. If you look at hip-hop, very taboo. You know, hide your daughters, you know, that type of thing. They're dangerous. With disco music, the gays, that's the music for the gay people. Get that away from me. The cats that are now seen as your parents' music, those cats were seen as heroin addicts and no-gooders. And there's the subculture, the underground culture, and then there's the taboo element, and then there's just the star-aligned point in which, you know, if someone finally understands the formula that makes that particular genre work, and they figure out how to market it to those with money. And usually 9 times out of 10, those who create the music don't have money. And those that consume the music have money. Tickets are overpriced. And 9 times out of 10, you know, disenfranchised, and the poor people don't have the monetary means to support the culture that they help cultivate. Philadelphia was very important for us because the Roots needed to choose a town, again, that was underestimated. I'll tell you how we marketed Philadelphia to be the next town. We became accessible. We started having jam sessions inside my living room. Spread it word of mouth. Okay. We're sort of taking a risk on, you know, the whole novelty of, hey, you want to play drum? You want to play guitar with the Roots? Coming down to, you know, Questlove's house. Da-da-da-da-da-da. I had a caterer there. I had a guy, a 5-star chef, giving you free food. Free food. You get to play with the Roots. What more could you ask for? Well, next thing you know, the pizza guy's coming over. It's music. You know, this guy's coming over. It's a high school kid in 10th grade. It's Bilal. This girl that works retail downtown. It's Jill Scott. This girl cuts sandwiches at 7-Eleven down the street. It's Jaguar Wright. You know, it's a friend of friend of my merchandise guy who's visiting some friends from Atlanta, happens to be in Philly. It's India Irie. You know, one of my friend's running buddies is Beanie Siegel, and so on and so forth, so on and so forth, so on, you know, and then these 40 people inside my house creating. We're doing it every Friday, every Friday, every Friday. It outgrows my house. We bring it to a club, and then a community is created. Like, to me, that's perfect. Like, right now, I'm trying to find the next Philadelphia, and if that means I have to move to Des Moines, Iowa, you can find talent anywhere. I believe the true key to getting the music back is not the grand scale of things. Like, okay, my personal solution is not, okay, let me get a radio station, and then I'll make sure I reach a skillion people. It takes a village. I want to start with 10 people and make that spread to 20, and then make it spread to 200 and 2,000 and so forth and so forth and so on. And they tell their friends and their friends, and it just goes on. I think that the whole idea of community is the main idea that is lost amongst artists. Artists that are sort of alike. I embrace them. If I see anybody that's remotely like the Roots, not even like the Roots, if I see somebody innovative that I never heard of before, I'm right on them. I will email, phone, whatever. Hey, let's work together. Da da da. That's my whole approach. Get them. You know, let's be friends. I'll drum for you, whatever. Most artists, you know, that's a threat. Oh man, this guy's singing. He sings and he plays instruments and he writes similar to me. And his influences are Brian Wilson and Joni Mitchell. He's a singer-songwriter. Damn, like they see it as a threat. I don't see it as a threat. Once you get the threat element out and actually embrace like-minded thoughts and ideas, then I think we can move on. There's a whole nother element that we could be doing as artists with each other to sort of better the situation.